That fact-based conversation about the European Union was a little bit dispiriting for you about the looming Brexit, then there is some good news here. Liam Fox, the International Trade Secretary, has this morning suggested that MPs should wear ties in order to promote British tie makers as an area of industry that might grow after we leave the European Union. And I think it was yesterday, was it, in the House of Commons, this? Or was it today? Either way, parliamentary time was devoted to this conversation with a backbencher called Peter Bone asking a question in the House as we're in the middle of Brexit and dealing with the aftermath of Grenfell Tower about ties. I could now say one of two things, and they would both be intellectually defensible. I could now say that the European Union's chief negotiator, Michel Barnier, has just detonated an enormous bomb underneath the hopes of Britain's Brexit negotiators or many of Britain's Brexit supporters. Or I could say the European Union's chief negotiator, Michel Barnier, has just confirmed what many Remain supporters have been explaining for over a year. And they both be true. He's very simply describing the impossibility of, for example, having your cake and eating it. He's very simply describing, for example, the probable necessity or the probable introduction of customs checks on all food that is exported from this country, the very real possibility of trucks full of food rotting by the roadside as they wait for the inspectors to... Possibility, not certainty, but he is pretty adamant that the changes that we're going to have to see are going to be huge. And the line that he uttered that I think must rank among the understatements of... I say the year, but I'm going to go with the century. This must rank among the understatements of the century. The line that he's tweeted this morning, very, very simply, is that he thinks... Let me get this absolutely right, because it does merit some... I am not sure this has been fully understood in the UK. This on the three basic points that he's made today. I'll tell you what they are. Some in the UK say you can leave the single market and keep all the benefits. That is not possible. Some in the UK say you can leave the customs union and build frictionless trade. That is not possible. The other argument, of course, all third countries must accept the EU's autonomy to set standards. So if you want to trade in the EU, you accept the EU rules. The EU rules are put in place by the European Court of Justice. And the conversation hinges, doesn't it, on whether or not what you're hearing now is a description of an organisation that we are still and could still be a fully paid up functioning cooperational part of, or whether you're hearing this in the terms of them and us. That's it, isn't it? It's that simple. So I'm describing to you what the EU rules are, and you listening to me either think, oh yes, that will, of course, we play by the rules. Always, you can't. If you're playing football, you can't suddenly get out a golf club and start swinging it around the place. If we're going to be on that pitch, then we play by the rules and the referee's in charge. And the referee will be appointed from the ranks of referees, in which some of them are British and some of them aren't. So you're just hearing a very calm description of a club which we're part of, or you're hearing a description of some sort of enemy that wishes us harm. And that's it. He wishes no harm. These are just facts that he is sharing. The decision taken by the EU, the decision taken by the UK to leave the EU will have major consequences. It is my duty to say so. And I can't help thinking whether the subtext of that is the acknowledgement that not many people in the British government are explaining to British voters the cold realities of what these negotiations involve. I have to tell you that the big wake-up call that's coming is for all the Corbyn fans who think that he is somehow representing a break upon or an alternative to Theresa May's Brexit. Unless he's got an enormous rabbit up his sleeve, an awful lot of people who were cheering him to the rafters at Glastonbury have got one hell of a hangover coming in soon at Platform 2. But you are listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where the Brexit bandwagon continues to roll. Some good news from Brussels. The trade deal with Japan and the European Union has just been signed after a couple of years, I think, of negotiation. And, of course, when we leave, we'll be free to start negotiations to have our own trade deal, which, if we're really lucky, might be as good as the one that the EU... All right, if we're really lucky, it might be almost as good as the one that the largest single market in the world has just signed with Japan. Chuka Umunna joins me on the line now to comment on Michel Barnier's comments this morning with regard to what we can and can't expect to come. He suggests, Chuka Umunna, that a lot of people in Britain remain well, to paraphrase him slightly, unaware of reality.
I think he's right, James. I think he's absolutely right. And let's be clear what we're talking about here. We're talking about your listeners' jobs, their rights at work, protections for our environment, protections for the consumer. Now, the EU has two bodies, the single market and the customs union, that protect those things. And you can be a member of those bodies without being a member of the European Union. Now, the government has been continuing with this fiction that we can get those things, we can get the exact same benefits as being part of the single market and the customs union, but sitting outside of those bodies. He has debunked that today and said that is a fantasy. So if we want those protections for jobs, rights at work, the environment, the consumer, if we want to promote social justice in our country, he is saying you cannot do that unless you remain part of the single market and the customs union. And why this matters is because the government has taken those two things off the table in the negotiations with the European Union, which I think is a thoroughly retrograde step and against the national interest.
Yeah, didn't it also chime with the manifesto that you just fought the last election under?
So our manifesto said that a test for the government would be whether they achieve a deal that gives the exact same benefits as customs union and single market membership. The manifesto wasn't prescriptive on the model that is followed on that, but it said that that is the outcome. So from the Labour point of view, what Michel Barnier has said is that if that is your outcome, then the only way you can achieve it is by remaining a member of the single market and the customs union. And that's something I was saying during the election campaign. Many other MPs did.
I need you to clarify slightly, because I mean, the line simply put was that you would seek to retain benefits of single market and customs union.
Yeah, but without saying how we would do that.
Well, exactly, and that perhaps is where the smoke and mirrors come in, because the other phrase that appeared in the referendum was not as members but as partners. So surely Michel Barnier today has said that the Labour manifesto was a sort of work of fantasy, just as much as you're suggesting the government's negotiating position is.
Well, like I said, unlike the government, so the government said definitely no single market membership and definitely no customs union membership. The Labour position on that has been much more nuanced. And look, James, I've been very open.
By nuanced, you mean opaque?
Well, it is more open. I mean, I'm not a front bencher, and I've been very clear, I'm quite independent-minded on this issue. I think this is an issue of national interest that goes beyond party, goes beyond any particular individual. I am speaking for my constituents primarily, as always. We scored the highest Remain vote in my constituency, so it would be odd if I, the Member of Parliament for Streatham, was saying that I speak
more for yourself than for the manifesto, then, in this sort of contest, which is perfectly reasonable. Just to clarify, because the freedom of movement is the deal breaker. You can talk all you like about retaining benefits of single market and customs union, but if the party is committed to accepting the referendum result and more pertinently to stopping freedom of movement of people, then that's it. We're out of the single market and the customs union forever.
Well, first of all we can read into the referendum result is that Britain voted, a majority of people who participated in that referendum voted to leave the European Union. I don't think you can say that is a mandate for anything further than that. It is not a mandate for doing a withdrawal from the European Union in an extreme way. Now, on free movement, you could say that that was a concern. I'd agree with that. But what I don't agree with is the notion that we can't restrict the way in which free movement operates at the moment in any event. It was never unconditional. So at the moment, James...
Why weren't you saying this before the referendum result?
Hey, I did.
Why did nobody pay any attention to you?
but maybe because they don't think I'm terribly important. I don't know. But it is something that it is a point that I and many of the other leading figures in the Remain campaign made during the referendum. I never denied that immigration is an issue. Immigration can be an issue, but if you make the right public policy choices, it need not be an issue. And actually, you very eloquently have made that point to UKIP spokespeople and various others on your programme. You're one of the best advocates of this. So maybe I should give up my job and give it to you, James, because
I have a habit of reading stuff and finding out. I think you clearly do as well.
Your point
is the absence of the rules that were in place already allow countries like Germany to control the influx of workers.
There you go, listeners. James is already making the argument facts. And this is the thing. Look, the bottom line is, yes, if you have an increase in people coming to your area, it can put pressure on public services, it can put pressure on wages, it can put pressure on housing, all different things. But it need not be that way, because government can properly resource those areas with and how do they pay for that? They pay for it with the benefits that immigration brings to our country. And the point is, with the way the European Union rules already operate, is that if somebody comes here, they've been here for 3 months without a job and they've got no prospect of a job, you can ask them to leave. And we don't choose to do that.
This is probably the biggest thing missing from the whole referendum.
Yeah, so what we need is, we need fair movement of people, fair movement of labour, actually. That's the key thing. I think that's what people want. I don't think your listeners hate immigrants and are opposed to immigration. What I do think is that there are people there who want to see more, well, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. There are people there who want to see more control over the system. And what I would say is, look, if there was no prospect of us having any more control whatsoever or having any change or reform to the system, I can understand why people might say, OK, let's just throw this whole project away, the EU project, or any relationship with them. But that's just simply not the case. That is simply not the reality. And let's not forget, in other countries, they also look to how they can have fair movement of labour too. And I think we can do that whilst remaining members of the European single market and the customs union. Because, look, we're the United Kingdom, right?
So then we're the fifth biggest Norway. Then we end up like Norway.
Well, I think
what people are suggesting. Norway pays more to access a single market than we currently do as members of the European Union per capita.
Well, ever so slightly, but I think that you could look at the other models, Switzerland, Norway, Liechtenstein, but they're only a guide. Yeah? Yes. We are the United Kingdom. We are the fifth biggest economy in the world. We are the second or third biggest economy in Europe. We are the second biggest military power in the world. We have huge influence. We have 65 million people. The idea that we can only achieve what Norway or Liechtenstein and the other people have achieved in negotiations with the European Union, I think is defeatist and deeply unambitious. We are a country of enormous significance, and therefore we should be able to get the things that we want to get, the reforms we want to get, plus retaining those benefits by staying in the single market and the customs union. So let's do it. Come on, let's do this. Let's make it happen. Let's be ambitious. That's my view.
Okay, final question. Did you just a reaction actually to the Twitter exchange between the lawyer David Allen Green and Dominic Cummings, who of course was one of the senior members of the Vote Leave campaign, in which he conceded that it could be an error to leave the European Union. He was the man responsible for the £350 million comment on the side of the bus.
Well, it's extraordinary, and I think it exposes how deeply irresponsible they were in that campaign with many of the things that they said. And the one that your listeners, I'm sure, will remember more than any other, and Dominic Cummings himself has said that they probably wouldn't have won if they hadn't made this pledge, was their pledge to, and Boris Johnson is the kind of symbol, the promoter-in-chief of their NHS pledge to put £350 million extra per week into the NHS. And we gave Boris Johnson the opportunity to vote to indicate he intended to make sure that happened over the next few years. And he betrayed the country, and many people voted leave by seeking to pretend that he hadn't made that promise or gone around in that big, fat, red bus.
Could be a new children's television programme.
Oh, God, I don't know if we want Boris heading up children's TV programmes.
He'll fit right in. Thank you very much indeed, Chuka Umunna, the Labour MP, as he reminded us, backbencher for Streatham.